we'll go ahead and get started. Um, I'll start first with a little piece of scrap just to kind of go over the general technique and direction of things. I'll use a pen for this, but I think I might use pencil for the larger exercise. Either will work. I think with a pen, you'll have more drawing over, or the pencil, you kind of blend it together. But it was very sunny. It's very sunny here today, so the shadows were nice and crisp. We'll look at a very simple abstract scene to get some shadow play on the surface. So we need kind of two things, a surface and some objects to cast shadows. Maybe we'll just start by making a little rectangular prism, obelisk shaped thing in a roughly 3D configuration. So it could be 30-60, 45-45, two arbitrary angles that just kind of give a sharp kind of vanguard bottom corner, some lines that go up vertically, and the same or similar angles at the top, and a little square. And they can be rough, precise. I'm not going to use tools, so whatever comes to you. But something like that, we could imagine living in a little bit of a world. It's a volume, and maybe it lives on a plane. From a perspective of a plane, that might just be about extending some of the edges outwards. So if we take the front edge and try to follow it as parallel as we can out towards the end of the world, end of the page, or wherever that may be. Do that in the opposite direction. We set up a little bit of a coordinate system, an origin of some kind, and every part of this can continue on at the same or similar metric measure there, just parallel lines going X and Y out into space. We could even play with the spacing of them. They don't need to be the same. That'll just determine some of the variability and play in the world that forms there. And they'll go, in a sense, crossing out in all directions. So that's why I might do a bit of a pencil work first, so those are easier to draw over the top of. And I'm just drawing quickly for the illustration. So we'll end up with a bit of a grid there on a small piece like this. It could go to the end of a larger sheet or a page in the sketchbook. Maybe it has a defined boundary or just a loose ending to things somewhere. In any one of those spaces, we'll play a little game of finding that same bottom corner, going up a certain amount, maintaining roughly parallel connections, and creating a small field of various size little prisms. They don't have to remain perfectly rectangular as you go up. You could play with them having a little variation to their shape that might start to make them look funny, but whatever works as you're drawing around. And the last part of it will bring in some shadow direction. Could go forward, back, left, and right. We won't worry too much about the specific angle of projection, but just that the angles, again, are relatively parallel. So something small may have a much smaller or shorter shadow there, or something large may end up even going off the page. And we'll look at giving those some shade and texture in various ways, depending on your instrument. But that'll be the start, is crafting a little world with a few standing objects. And anytime you see an opportunity to break the rules or disrupt the grid, feel free to explore it. It's just there to help us get a sense of it, get started. As we enter the exercise, take a moment to choose what instrument you'd like to start with. A few different pencils here, pens, whatever feels kind of good in the hand. Like I said, all of them will work, but just be more or less kind of overlapping conditions. When you've picked one, holding it for a moment, finding the way you want to hold it for the drawing. This may be a bit more precise drawing, so a little more standard kind of grip to the pencil works well for me. A rest on a guide finger, the control finger, and the thumb to keep it in place. And we'll take a few breaths together, just preparing the place of the page, maybe moving the hand around it a little bit as you Notice your inhalation and exhalation. The hand mapping out your proximity to things, if there's any adjustments needed to the body or to the page, just to be able to comfortably reach a good portion of it. And as your hand finds a comfortable spot where it feels most neutral, most relaxed, kind of start there. Maybe the center, maybe off to the side, anywhere can work. And similar to the warm up, we'll start first with a volume, something that is the beginning of the world that will lead out into the rest of its structure. And as you feel ready, finding a point, you're just marking it with a small dot or something, knowing that point is the front bottom corner of something that will form there. And the first thing we'll do is give it a height. Draw a line, generally vertical out from yourself, some distance. Any will work, big or small, has no size yet, only a measurement in this Z direction here. And then again at the bottom point, maybe feeling out before drawing an angle, whether that's more shallow, more acute, but generally roughly 90 degrees looking when you make it. Choosing a corner line, and letting it just go off for a while in a direction. As the hand kind of reaches out, we've set up the beginning of the axis, one Z, one X or Y, and roughly opposite of that one on the other side to the left. We'll bring out another line. It's starting there to form a little base axis. Now I'm going to draw over the first vertical line just to give it a little bit more presence. Weight on the paper to stand out, and bring that in at any time if you like. Do it mostly so it'll show up. And decide on the two other lines how wide this piece may be, and try to keep them roughly even looking. Just make a little mark. Quick decision made. This will be the dimension in this axis, and then going over it to give it a little more presence. Trying to find roughly that same dimension on the other side, and highlighting it there. And now we've established what will become the larger structure. So we can note it, maybe even extend some of these lines farther out all the way to the edges of the page in both directions very lightly. Getting comfortable with their orientation. Noticing the changes in the body position, drawing across and with kind of your primary hand. Switching hands if you want to play a game. You can use the page as a guide a bit if you need to steady, letting the small finger just rest on it to help keep a steady line or those longer strokes. But if they wiggle a little, that will just be how the world unravels from this starting place. And we'll give this volume its full shape by drawing vertical lines up the same length as the first one. And anytime you can always go light till you feel it's about the right place visually. From the two outer points to about the same place up above. And then at the same angles to the left and right, cap that off. Any variation there will just be a change in the volume shape, so it doesn't have to be perfectly square. We're just using it again to guide our direction as we form this first establishing piece in the world. Then we have the outer cover of a book or a page folded in half, and to bring it volume, using those same parallel edges, we can find its structure towards the back. Lightly, when it feels complete, give it a little more presence. Really see that volume emerge on the page. A collision between the X, Y, and Z axes in this parallel universe. And with that as our fulcrum, our starting point, the foundation to the structure, we'll begin to use our breath to fill out the plane of the world, the grid, lightly. It'd be hard to see mine, so I'll draw them a little heavier. But we can start again with that first corner. If it's not already there. Line extending all the way out in that left to right diagonal. Another line extending all the way through the right to left diagonal. To see that intersection of the grid. With that visually established, sometimes here the maintaining of parallel can be a bit of a challenge. Letting the eye work with the hand. Do your best. Take the breath as it comes. If it wobbles, let it wobble. Sometimes the wobble helps it maintain more parallelness and try to keep it perfect the whole way. And when you're ready, we'll take an inhalation together. Choose a side, left or right, of one of the lines. You can go in any order you like. Choose a distance. On the inhalation, prepare a starting place, and as you exhale, begin the journey along the page at a pace that feels comfortable to you to try to keep a bit of parallel relationship between two lines. Primarily working with the crossing lines, the X lines, will let the Z be the special moment of the volumes. And we're going to continue to do several of these in both directions. So finding your order, switching back and forth, staying with one, just whatever feels comfortable. If you need a break, you can switch to another to change things up. As I said, the variability of the grid is completely up to you. Regularity, change, just give new context to the world. As you're ready to start the next line, take a breath in. Place the pencil, prepare your eyes, and exhale. A tip along that journey, traveling parallel to its predecessor, describing the surface of a plane in space. Each one may take us different times, as we do work with different paper, so the time in between is a chance to let the eyes take things in, to prepare the hand at the next place, and be ready for the inhalation. And ride the exhalation around the page. If it's a longer page like this, you may have to take a pause or a break somewhere along the way. It's okay. Just reset and keep going. You can take small breaths in between. You don't need to hold it through the whole pacing. These are long lines for me. You take attention to the hand and eye. You take attention to the setting of the breath. And start to observe where you feel a natural inclination to want to breathe again, reposition again. Breath in at the beginning of the line, an exhalation to get it started. I think I would start to switch directions a little bit, but again, stay with whatever feels comfortable to you. Just breathing in to find the beginning. Think about your spacing. With that breath prepared, exhaling. Begin movement. Letting the eyes track the new line along the previous line. Letting the breath return to its regular rhythm as you work your way through the page. You can begin starting and stopping at your own pacing with very different sized pieces of paper. You may get through quicker or take much longer. So, whenever you're ready, take to mind that initial breath, breathing in, locating, and exhaling through the space of the page, lines crossing in the two directions, slowly bringing more dimension to the plane and space. Using the calm and steadiness brought by the attention to the breath to help guide the eyes, to give them space to focus on that directionality, to bring some steadiness to the hand. If you ever need multiple breaths between, feel free, there's no race. You already have many lines describing this field. Plenty to work with. You can always continue to add more, expand the territory. So far, I've been working mostly in front of the object. It's a little clearer space to work in, a little easier to engage first. Now I'll begin working back behind the object, expanding our field into that openness of the page. And that may help to start roughly at the object. You can always draw through it with a light line. I'm going to begin by drawing out away from it to keep my parallels parallel in the front. Just a breath in at its point of departure from the ground. An exhalation to keep the grid moving. With that trajectory established, we could begin from where it started and head in the other direction. And a breath to stabilize. An exhalation to lightly draw through the volume and establish the trajectory on the page. With those lines in place, it becomes a little easier to keep moving through. So continuing that cycle and rhythm of breathing in to start, stabilize and exhaling to ride along. And think of each pair of lines, each parallel moment of relationship, like some train tracks moving through the space. Line by line, breath by breath, the field takes on more and more shape on the page. The little anomalies, the bumpy wobbles, starting to give surface and character. The general parallelness, giving structure. We don't need a piece of graph paper. Begin to see the regulating rhythm of the space of the page. Do a couple more in the other direction, moving at a comfortable pace, moving through again the object, being parallel. We've got a good structure started, so we're at a place where we can start to add a little more volume to the world. Complete a few more passes through the regular rhythm of breathing in at the start and exhaling to begin the careful journey, the eye and the hand along the parallel path. And the loose ends, the areas at the periphery, an opportunity to always come back and bring a little more, but let it have that soft return to the paper. Within this field, perhaps there are moments of interesting anomaly, or just let the eyes dart around, finding somewhere to begin another vertical moment, highlighting its front edge or corner, making that V shape into the foreground, extending a vertical line, some direction, wherever it feels right to start or stop. I'm going to try to avoid starting and stopping on other grid lines. They'll begin to blend, but that could be interesting. And bringing up the other two corners until we can complete the volume using the parallel lines wherever we are as a guide for maintaining that general structure there. Since our grid is free and open, we might get some wobbles to it, and that's okay. And take a minute or two just to draw and add more of these at your own pacing, letting the eye find a place to start, and then following the system, vertical lines up from the corner, parallel lines connecting them around into a square. Begin to see the volume take shape on the paper. The structure of the world is in place, regulating the system on the plane, the rules for bringing a volume out of that plane. We could add more at any time, add more anywhere, continue to refine and play as the composition suggests things to us. But in the last few minutes we have, I'll begin to introduce a little world to the world, a little dimension beyond just the X, Y, and Z, the abstract line, planes, and volumes. We'll bring a shape that breaks the orthogonality and begins to suggest light and volume. So with any of these objects, we'll probably get through one or two, but you can bring it to all of them whenever you feel like it, if you want to. I'm going to give a shadow that doesn't align with any of the other lines, starting at one outer corner of a volume and coming out towards myself so it's more dramatic. For the ease of thinking about it, I'll do a length of line that's roughly the same as its vertical, give or take. And similar to forming the boxes, we have these square edges that follow the parallel. You can give yourself a guideline from the center one running parallel as the rays of the sun behave in a parallel projection. And form off the cap, volume, and if reflected down onto the ground. And we add a little tone or shade. You can use the pencil or bring a bunch of parallel lines to it. Something to distinguish it as a shape, different volume. The shadow coming forward like this suggests the light is behind, and so the surfaces of the volume would be in some kind of shade or shadow we could bring into it for definition, but we may just keep it abstract at first and get a few moments of shadow into play. So with that direction, you can always use a pencil or something to kind of transfer it to see where it will go and keep a series of these parallel lines going across each form. letting them wrap the object down onto the ground, a projection of its profile or outline, looking similar as a reflection with its own character and distortion from the original. And if you want to take some time to shade it in a little to see it, doing it very quick and fast, and you come back and refine it later. Come in and bring it darkness through heavier pen or ink, or just a nice even gray from the pencil. First to see it, to start to feel the effect of an environment on the space. And some shadows may fall behind other objects. Helping to distinguish foreground from background, everything roughly finding its way into that parallel system of the ground, even when the shadows distort and cross it at various angles. The more consistent the angle of the shadow, the more similar to a single time of day, the more variable each one its own moment. Could be interesting as well. Practice of our mind's attention to directionality, shape, these parallel rays of projection, taking a great deal of attention to keep them moving evenly across large spaces. The more regular we start to shape them and where they resemble a natural setting, even from the abstraction of just geometry. Consistent height relative to the object, consistent direction relative to the environment. A slow transforming of a grid in space into volume, surface, and environment. But there's many more places and opportunities to draw another shape emerging from the ground, many more places to form volume relative to the plane, many more places to bring a shadow, depending on how many volumes we began to construct there. And if you're so interested, you can begin again or keep going through this world until it takes completeness of shape, dealing with foreground and background, light and dark. But for now, we come to the end of the exercise. So we may just begin to complete the final piece or take note of where we are. Choose when to bring the pen and pencil to rest. Set them down as you're ready with an intention. Take a few deep breaths to take in the space. Let everyone come to their completion. You give the hands a little attention, just rolling the fingers in and out, stretching them and letting them relax. Being present in the quiet of your space. Noticing the little sounds of the day as we transition back to the world around us.